A year of moderate aerobic exercise enlarged the hippocampus by 2% in older adults, offsetting typical annual shrinkage. This is Planetterrian Daily, episode 145. 1 year of moderate aerobic exercise produced a 2% increase in hippocampal volume in older adults. The gain offset the typical annual shrinkage observed in this age group. The finding comes from direct measurement rather than indirect markers. Researchers tracked brain structure before and after the full intervention period using imaging. Now, shifting to how external exposures can alter cognitive development during adolescence. A longitudinal study followed adolescents who began using cannabis and compared them with non-users. Memory, attention, language, and processing speed showed slower growth after initiation. Abilities developed normally at first, then plateaued while non-users continued improving. THC appeared most strongly associated with the memory changes. Investigators plan to follow the cohort into early adulthood to assess persistence of the differences. A randomized trial tested a phone-based adherence app among patients with tuberculosis. Treatment success rose from 74% to 82%, while dropout fell by nearly one-third. The app delivered reminders and tracked medication intake in real time. The study was conducted in routine public health clinics rather than specialized centers. Follow-up work will examine whether similar tools maintain gains when scaled to larger regional programs. Researchers examined national vital statistics data after Greece introduced austerity policies in 2010. Infant mortality rose 43% and remained elevated in subsequent years. The increase was sharpest in the first years of spending cuts. The analysis compared pre- and post-austerity trends while controlling for other economic indicators. Public health researchers will track whether later policy reversals alter the trajectory. Analysis of accident records from England and Wales showed e-scooter riders suffered traumatic brain injury at 3 times the rate of motorcyclists. Riders also sustained more internal organ and vascular damage than either motorcyclists or pedal cyclists. The study drew on hospital data covering multiple years of rising e-scooter use. Authors note the absence of helmets and higher speeds on shared infrastructure as contributing factors. Transport safety groups will examine whether design or regulatory changes reduce the observed excess. On a different note, time mouse stick insects that abandoned sexual reproduction roughly 1 million years ago still carry functional genes required for meiosis. The finding contradicts the expectation that unused reproductive systems erode rapidly under relaxed selection. Researchers sequenced multiple species and compared gene content with sexual relatives. The retained genes showed little evidence of degradation despite the long asexual period. Future work will test whether these genes retain any cryptic function or simply persist by chance. University of Maryland researchers rapidly twisted a microscopic tip to detect infrared-induced flexing in two-dimensional materials. The approach yields higher spatial resolution than conventional scanning methods. It captures mechanical responses at the nanoscale without requiring cryogenic conditions. The technique was demonstrated on several atomically thin samples. The group intends to apply it to other light-responsive layered materials. A study of multiple species showed that water transport efficiency, not temperature alone, predicts whether trees shift upslope or downslope with warming. Species with traits that tolerate drier soils move downhill despite rising temperatures. Data came from long-term forest plots across elevation gradients. The results indicate that water availability can override thermal cues in range shifts. Ecologists will incorporate hydraulic measurements into future distribution models. Researchers used laser spectroscopy to determine the nuclear shape of fermium-255 with high precision. The measurement provides the first detailed structure data for this heavy actinide. The work was performed on samples produced in accelerator facilities. The results refine models of nuclear deformation in the heaviest elements. Additional isotopes will be examined to map trends across the actinide series. High-resolution imaging revealed internal structures inside warm clouds that allowed droplet coalescence before ice forms. The observations address a long-standing gap in understanding precipitation initiation. Data were collected during targeted aircraft flights through developing cloud systems. The work suggests that certain droplet size distributions and turbulence patterns suffice to start rainfall. Most people assume rain begins only when ice crystals form inside clouds and grow heavy enough to fall. Right now, as warm, moist air rises, tiny droplets collide and merge inside turbulent eddies. A single droplet, only 50 micrometers across, can grow into a raindrop 1,000,000 times larger in volume through repeated collisions. Modelers will now test whether these mechanisms improve forecasts of warm rain events. From cloud microphysics to a different measurement challenge, mapping ice that is already on the ground. A new model produced an updated global map of glacier ice volume using machine learning methods trained on field measurements. The map improves estimates of stored fresh water and potential sea level contribution. The study combines satellite imagery with ground observations from multiple continents. Lead researchers at Ka Foscari University and the Institute of Polar Sciences led the effort. Subsequent versions will incorporate new high-resolution imagery from upcoming satellite missions. From large-scale environmental sensing to a much smaller-scale sensing problem inside cells and devices. A levitating micromagnet measured magnetic fields too weak for conventional room temperature sensors. The device operates without liquid helium cooling or heavy shielding. It targets applications such as brain activity mapping and cardiac monitoring. The prototype achieves sensitivity levels previously requiring bulky cryogenic setups. Engineering teams plan to miniaturize the system for portable medical use. Researchers found the same silver nanocatalyst uses different reaction sites depending on whether the cell generates electricity or produces hydrogen. The discovery supplies a new design principle for solid oxide cells that perform both functions. The work was carried out on operating cells at elevated temperatures typical of these devices. The team expects the insight to guide electrode architecture that improves efficiency in reversible systems. Next measurements will test whether the site switching behavior holds across other metal nanocatalysts. A new platform uses reconfigurable optical paths to overcome the lack of natural photon interactions. The design allows photons to perform a wider range of logic operations than fixed interferometers. Prototype devices demonstrated basic gate operations with measurable fidelity. The architecture was developed to scale toward fault-tolerant photonic processors. Next steps include integrating more modes while maintaining low loss. Oak Ridge National Laboratory scientists created a method that rapidly identifies genetic elements controlling microbial chemical production. The platform was tested on bacteria engineered to synthesize target compounds. It pinpoints regulatory sequences that can be edited to improve yield. The approach supports faster strain development for domestic manufacturing of materials and critical minerals. Teams will apply the tool to additional host organisms, from detecting faint signals to another public health intervention that improves detection of treatment gaps. A randomized trial enrolled 257 uninsured Hispanic adults with diabetes and assigned them to telehealth coaching plus physician feedback or usual care. The intervention lowered HbA1c by an additional 1.0 percentage point over 12 months. Community health workers delivered the coaching and relayed glucose data to physicians. The trial took place in primary care settings serving low-income populations. Investigators will assess whether the model sustains gains beyond 1 year. From real-world health interventions to the final note on measurable mechanisms operating across different timescales. Keep an eye on follow-up data from the adolescent cohort as researchers track whether cognitive differences persist into early adulthood. That's Planetterrian Daily for today. If you enjoyed this, a rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify really helps new listeners find the show. I'm Patrick in Vancouver. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at NARA Network. Links in the show notes. This show comes to you from the NARA Network. If you want another sharp daily briefing, Environmental Intelligence has you covered. The Environment and Climate Policy Brief for Canada. All our shows are free at naranetwork.com. Live dashboards, TSLA, SpaceX launches, the investing scoreboard are all at naranetwork.com's data. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.